Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I will give you all a second to get Facebook to notify you all that I am live. Hello. Let me make sure I am working here on my computer, that my recording is on. I hope you all can hear me. If you can hear me, please let me know that you can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. Let me know that you can hear me. I am still in the process of making sure my lives are as authentic as possible. At first, I thought I had to be all fancy schmancy just to get on here and go live. And I'm just realizing, hey, it takes too long to do all of that. Let me just go ahead and greet you all now. So I give Facebook a few minutes to let you all know I am live. And then I'm going to go ahead and teach very quickly about institutions and programming and messages that influence or impact our ability to be authentic. You guys know for the month of October, I've been talking about the theme of authenticity. And I've been really working hard to coach people, coach my clients, coach people that I know into being more authentic. I hope you guys can hear me. Please let me know that you can hear me. I really hope you can. Okay. Let me make sure I can get this volume right. I don't know if you guys can hear me. All right. I think you can hear me. I hope so. All right. Good. So I'm going to be talking about programming tonight. Programming. I'm going to be talking about institutions and messages that we receive from organizations that often influence our authenticity. So I hope you guys can see that. Hi, Diana. Diana, can you hear me? Okay. I can't tell if my volume is working or not. Please let me know if you can hear me. Just kind of put something in the chat that you can hear me, okay? I want to make sure my the volume is working on this. I'm just a little nervous. So if you can hear me, please put in the chat that you can hear me, so that I know that I'm on the right track. All right. Let me know you can hear me. All right. Looks like you all can hear me. And I have a new light. Y'all don't laugh at my light. I have a new one of these little lights that give me just a little more lighting here in this live. But it glares on my glasses, so I'm going to have to work on that. Okay, you guys, let me know you can hear me. I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right? All right, good. Hey, Diana, you can hear me okay? All right, good. All right, good. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get into this. So I want to talk about some of the programming and the institutions that impact our authenticity, okay? So being authentic, most people think, is about just being real, being honest, and being truthful. And that some of that encompasses authenticity. But when I'm talking about authenticity, it's in the context of biblical teaching. And I'm going to eventually teach and get into biblical authenticity. But first, I want to break down and talk about some of the roots of where we are today. Okay? So before I can get into what the Bible says about being authentic, first, let's just talk about some of the things that prevent us from being authentic. All right. And you may not realize that you have been taken on and living with certain behaviors that have prevented you from being authentic. All right. So let's look at that. So the first institution or influence to that affects our authenticity is our family. All right. Our family structure, they influence how we are, our level of authenticity. And let me tell you why. Because most of us, a lot of us, come from families that may have been inauthentic themselves. And then their family may have been inauthentic. And so now you have a cycle and a series of people who pass down hurt and messages that tell you in so many words and in behavior that you shouldn't behave that way. All right. So let's say, for instance, if your mom had unresolved conflict with someone in her family, such as her mother or her sister, she may not express that unresolved conflict, and yet at Thanksgiving dinner or at family gatherings there's tension because people have not been given a space to where they can tell the truth, or they can tell someone, hey, I have an issue with you. So what we'll do is we'll get around the dinner table with our family and we'll put on these fake smiles and these fake personas, but inside we're actually hurting. And so then we learn from our family these messages of how not to use your voice, of how not to be true to who you are, because you want to keep a persona going. And most of the time, the emotional cages that our parents lived in was passed down to us. Okay? And so we were stuck in emotional cages as well. We picked up the habits from our families of silencing ourselves, of not telling each other the truth, and not talking about our feelings. That's a big one in families. Not being able to talk about your feelings is a huge issue in families, and it causes you to not live in an authentic life. It causes you not to be true. Many members of our family, they carry a lot of pain, okay? And this pain is often covered up in unspoken words that are usually demonstrated through other bad behavior, okay? So we come from families who, because they don't have a space where they can say exactly what they think, they can say exactly what they feel, they can say exactly what's on their mind, they put themselves in emotional prisons, and then they teach us that this is the way that you deal with conflict. And anytime you have a child, if you have a large family and there's that one child that's always outspoken, that one child that's always saying what's on their mind, most of us in our families will often, more often than not, tell that child they need to shut up. They talk too much. Why can't you act like your brother or your sister? So our family teach us how to be inauthentic, because we get messages that says you should be like your brother, you should be like your sister. Why can't you act like your cousin? Why can't you stay in line? When all this person is doing is being who they are. But because we come from people who are in pain, that pain is passed on to us. And so it causes us not to speak up, causes us not to use our voices. It causes us to shrink and hide because we haven't been given a space to be ourselves. Okay? So, oftentimes when people are not living their authentic self and they receive messages from their families, such as you're not good enough, or comparing them to a brother or a sister, most of us will lash out in other behaviors such as anger, abuse, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, domestic violence, or the like. Because our voices have been silenced and we can't really be free to be who we are. And so we find other outlets that we perceive will give us the freedom that we need because we can't find the words to express ourselves. This is often very common in families. Very common in families. So let's say, for instance, you have, I'm going to turn this light out because I see the glare in my glasses and I think the light is okay. I'm going to turn that light out. Most often in families, let's say, for instance, you have a family full of doctors. So the mom is a doctor, and dad is a doctor, and the oldest brother is a doctor, and the sister is a doctor, and then the third child decides, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be a rock star. But the message that that child received his whole life was, you are going to be a doctor. The child is probably squeamish. He grows up with some insecurities. He grows up with thinking that this is the only path that I have because my mother and my father and my older sister and brother are doctors. I have to be a doctor too. But actually in his heart of hearts, he wants to be a musician. And because we are taught to not speak up and not verbalize our wants and our desires, now we have a doctor who doesn't want to be a doctor, who could possibly harm or injure somebody else because he couldn't find the voice to speak up enough to say, this is not what I want to do. All right. So we receive a lot of unhealthy messages from our families. Another thing we do in families is we role play. We role play a lot in church. Okay. So role play can take the form of how we make life's decisions. We make life decisions because we are playing a role. Listen to what I found in some research. When we're not being authentic, we find ourselves role playing. And one of the biggest ways that we role play is when we make life decisions. Life decisions such as where we attend school, who we marry, what neighborhood we live in, how we take care of ourselves, what beliefs we have, how we manage money, how we view health and wealth, are significantly, I can't talk tonight, are significantly influenced by our family. And I'll say that again. Please, thank you, Diane. If this is good to you, anyone watching, please share, please tag a friend. I would love for you guys to do that. Share, and I would really appreciate that. Again, how our family influences our life decisions is through what's called role play. All right? Our life decisions are influenced by our family in the areas of where we attend school, who we marry, what neighborhood we live in, how we take care of ourselves, our belief systems, how we manage money, how we view health and wealth. They're all influenced by our family. Let me give you an example. If you grow up in a family that does not have a lot of money, all right, and every time you asked your mother for something, your mother will respond. So let me tell you, my mother will respond. My mother would always respond with, do you think money grow on trees? There ain't nobody around here got no money. And then when my mom would experience people that had money, she had something negative to say about them. Them rich people are greedy. They ain't doing nothing for money. They probably lying. They're foul. They're just greedy. They're money hungry. Just all kind of negative things. So I grew up with this mindset that having money was bad. I grew up with this mindset that people who had money was bad. So it took me a long time to get to the mindset that God was okay with wealth. We're given messages growing up. I was given a message growing up that not having money was hard. That money was hard to come by. That wealth was not for me. That money didn't grow on trees and nobody had it. And the people who do have it are probably just messed up anyway. All right. So when you get those kind of messages from your family, it causes you to have some insecurities and some fears when you come into contact with people who have money or people who are okay with wealth. It causes you to be a little inauthentic. It causes you to silence who you are because you've been given a message by your family that that's not good. When the Bible says everything that God made was good. All right? One of the things I ask is that many of us are taught to follow the same or similar path as our families. All right? But what we're finding out, especially in the last 30 years, that people are breaking away from family patterns, and they're breaking away from negative family pathologies. Here's the sad truth. The sad truth is that our families are usually the first ones to take our authenticity away. Instead of allowing us and affirming us with the voice that we're okay, that this is a safe space, we are often given messages of who we are not instead of who we are. Our families teach us who we are not instead of who we should be. All right. Your biggest obstacle to being authentic is getting over what your family thinks about your life. That's going to be your biggest obstacle. It's what your family thinks about who you are. What your family thinks about living your truth. What your family thinks about being godly and biblically authentic. Okay, and that's coming in a forthcoming message that I'm preparing now about how to be biblically authentic. Right now, I just want to talk about authenticity as a whole. Okay, so y'all, the second institution that impacts our authenticity are schools and churches. Schools and churches. Our education system taught us what to think, what to know, and what to memorize. But our education system did not teach us how to think, how to create, and how to problem solve. So, here's something I bet most of you did not know. So, Spelman College in Atlanta was actually started by J.D. Rockefeller and his family. They needed a school where Negro children and children of former slaves could be educated so that they could be part of the workforce. There is I don't know why I didn't Google that before I started this live, but there's a document called the General Education Act, where J.D. Rockefeller was a oil tycoon. All right, so there were schools for white children in the areas of manufacturing and agriculture. But at the turn of the 19th century, going into the 20th century, agriculture and manufacturing was exploding. And because schools were segregated, there were not schools for Negro children. So what a bunch of rich white oil tycoons such as J.D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie and all of these people, they got together and pooled their money and began to create schools just for Negro children and just for black children, all right? And children of former slaves. This is why you have a lot of schools like Texas A&M, which stands for agriculture and manufacturing. You have a lot of schools. I think another one is Florida A&M. That's a HBCU. But here's the thing. The HBCUs became popular through the money that was sown from the oil tycoons like Carnegie and Rockefeller. All right. So there's this document called the General Education Act that was written by J.D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie. And the essential theme of the document was we have to create a workforce that will be the labor force for at least 100 years. So we need to educate these children to be our workforce for the next 100 years. Okay? This is how our school system came about. Our school system was to get us educated enough to go into the workforce, to go into industry. All right. And so we were not taught growing up. We were not taught how to think. We were not taught how to be creative. We were taught 2 + 2 is 4. We were taught E = MC squared. We were taught physics and biology and things like that. But we were not taught to be ourselves and carve out the creativity that we need for school. So this is what happened in our schools. They never taught us how to think. And for the few students that was radical enough to step out of the box and literally color out of side of the line, they were often spanked and prodded into submission until they conformed to what the teacher and the education system said. Because we spend so many hours and days in school, we are influenced as adults of how to be our inauthentic selves. This is why we get shortchanged in learning on how to speak up, on how to talk about how we feel, and how to color outside of the line, and how to speak up when we disagree. So our schools and our institutions have taught us conformity instead of authenticity. All right? We were taught what to think, what to know, and what to memorize instead of how to think, how to create, and how to problem solve. All right, our last institution of the night is, let's talk about churches and religion. Now, churches have a huge impact on our authenticity. It has a sometimes often negative impact on whether we're being ourselves or not. All right, so my belief is just simply everyone needs to have a relationship with God. But churches do what they can and to make sure that we all have our own pathway to God. However, many of us, myself included, grew up with people pulling at us and telling us what to believe, what to think, what to feel, and how to behave. And that if we didn't think, feel, or behave in a certain way, God was going to punish us. If we didn't think, feel, or believe in a certain way, we were absolutely going to hell. What we think, believe, and feel, it didn't matter because we were just a sinner and God didn't love us. So, when you speak out about the limitations of what happened in our churches and how some of it stole our authenticity, many people in the church will come up and say you're being blasphemous. But that's not true. What we're finding out as we get older, and I'm finding out as I got older, that I have a lot of unlearning to do. Because a lot of things that I was taught coming up in the church, I found, first of all, I didn't find it in the Bible. And secondly, as I got into my relationship with God more, some of those old beliefs just began to fall off because I got to know God for myself. I got to know him as another side, a loving side, a decent side. And so it caused me to speak up more and be bold in my faith. Where before we were taught and repeated, you going to hell, you a sinner. Now I can say with all boldness that God is a provider. And I didn't do that because the church told me to do it. I did it because I found my authentic voice and I found my authentic relationship with him that caused me to know him for the loving God that he is. All right? We have been programmed even on what to say about church. All right? So you have to do some deprogramming in order to be yourself, in order to worship a certain way, in order to pray a certain way, in order to live a certain way. You have to find that relationship with God, and you can't mimic someone else. Everybody's shout don't belong to you. Get your own praise, get your own relationship, and don't put on the church persona, because when you put on a church persona, it strips you of who you are in God. It strips you of your identity in Christ. And it strips you of walking as an imitator of God. All right? Here is one more last thing. Here's a bonus. I really didn't have this one, but I give you a bonus. Social media. I just did this one today. Social media is an institution that will strip us of our authenticity. All right? And I'm going to talk very quickly. Social media strips us by telling us we have to have a certain physical appearance, that we have to be focused on the external symbols of success, and that we have to worry about how we're perceived by others. We talk a good game about I'm accepted in the beloved, and that God is who he is, and I don't have to worry about what people think about me. But actually, in all honesty, many of us do care about what people think about us. And so what we do is we get into what's called people pleasing. And when we get into people pleasing, it takes away our authentic voice. We're not being true to ourselves when we say yes just to go along to get along. Okay? So focusing on those external symbols of success. All right, I want to read something here by Abraham Maslow, and then I'm going to close this out. So Maslow said, a truly authentic person will be open to new experiences, empathetic, non-judgmental, and non-hostile towards others. Maslow believed and wrote that an overt, aggressive, and hostile person is truly not authentic because they are not at peace with themselves. My ultimate goal for you is to be at peace with yourself. Okay? Be at peace with who God created you to be. Let's destroy some of the messages that were given to us as children, such as shut up, be like your sister. Who do you think you are? You can't do that. Sit down. Don't say that. Speak when you're spoken to. Wait your turn. Don't talk back. Don't interrupt. Be quiet. Children should be seen and not heard. Don't draw out of the line. Sit up, straighten up, go up, be back. And before you know it, we have all of these messages in our heads that stop us from being ourselves. And before we know it, we are 40-year-old conformers. So, and there's pressure to conform. There's pressure to be outside and to think outside of the box. And it does take courage. It takes courage. It takes confidence. And it takes a certain level of boldness to be able to step out of the box and listen only to the voice of God. And know that you know that you know that you are living an authentic and peaceful life because you are an imitator of God. I'm asking you and I'm pleading with you today, don't give in to the pressure to conform. Unlearn the things that the institutions have taught us on how not to be ourselves. All right? If there's something that you want, the Bible clearly says that you can ask for it and you can get whatever you ask for. All right? If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. Tomorrow or sometime this week, I'm going to be talking about biblical inauthenticity and 3 ways. Oh, what fingers are these? 3 ways we can be more authentic in Christ. Okay? So 3 institutions that impact our authenticity is schools, family, and churches. All right? Talk to you guys later. Please share with some friends. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you want to talk about. And I'll be more than happy to come back on live and go ahead and talk about it. All right? We're finishing out the month with the subject of authenticity. This is Dr. Rashida Leverett. And until next time, be your authentic self. All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.